afternoon, everybody. It's Kalini Kent here, and it's World Mental Health Day today, as you all know. And I've had a couple of wonderful conversations already with Naomi Gilmore and also with Michelle Phelps. And I've now got in the studio waiting for me the wonderful Mark Williams. Now, as you know, it's a very, very important day today. It's an important day every day, actually, to think about our mental health. But today, I wanted to just focus on 3 different areas. And we've looked at suicide recovery and mental health conditions as a result of that. We've also looked at a parent dealing with children who are struggling with a disability. And now we're going to talk to Mark, who is very passionate about father's mental health. And he's been a gentleman who's actually himself suffered from PTSD and postnatal depression as a result of his wife actually having postnatal depression. So I would love to welcome into the studio Mark, who's a very, very passionate campaigner and talker, and I'd love to welcome him in to join me. Hi, Mark.
Hi, gang. You all right? How are you doing?
Lovely to have you here. And I have to say, Mark, also, I didn't say, is an amazing, he's from Bridgend in Wales, and he's got the most amazing accent, haven't you, dear?
Well, I can put subtitles on if you can't understand me, so I'm quite happy. But yeah, thank you. Thanks.
It's lovely to have you here. And we actually connected last year, about a year ago, didn't we? That was in fact over bullying, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because you knew the MP down there, but you've been a very, very active person, haven't you, in very different spheres as well?
Yeah, definitely. I've campaigned for not just fathers, but for mother baby unit in Wales and all sorts of things over the years. But also trying to change policies for fathers and include them, because as we know, supporting all parents for their mental health, there's just far better outcomes for themselves and obviously the child's development as well. So trying to get a more family approach. We are.
Yeah. Because in fact, I think there may be some feedback. I'm just going to make sure that there isn't any feedback and we haven't got any other screens on at the moment. Is that okay? Can you hear? Yeah, perfect. Lovely. So I wanted to, because you actually are a father yourself of Ethan. Yeah. And how is Ethan right now?
He's come up to 16 now, so I'm going for the adolescent stage, which is another challenging time, if I'm honest with you. But he's great. He's fantastic. He's probably the most educated 15-year-old in our community on mental health, because my wife works in mental health as well. So, and he's more likely to come on to me if he is struggling as well. So, yeah, a lot of good things to come out with something bad, I should say.
Yeah, because you have obviously had your struggles, and we're going to come on to that in a moment. But I also want to flag, and I'm going to be sharing with everybody in a moment in the chat afterwards, that you've actually been a TEDx speaker, and your talk is really, really inspirational and fantastic. And so we'll leave the link to that in the conversation afterwards. And just whilst we are talking about chat, everybody, please do feel free to leave any comments, ask any questions. I'm sure Mark or I will be able to answer them. If there's anything at all that resonates as well with you in terms of the conversation we're going to have, because it's not going to be just about fathers, it is generally about mental health anyway and well-being. And I think that's what I wanted to get out today, is the main message that it's important to keep the conversations going and to also make sure that we actually look after our mental health, and not just for ourselves, for other people, and look out to signposts. But we'll get more onto that in a moment. So Mark, you're married, obviously, and you met Michelle. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I've been married nearly 23 years now as well. So, and I'll be honest, there's never been an argument ever that I've won. If I'm honest, but we connect well. She's a wonderful person. She's very supportive of my work, and also, where she is, she's very very active herself in trying to support and help people with their mental health as well. So yeah, we've got a wonderful relationship, and I think that's what we've always had. You know what I mean? And so, but I kept a lot of stuff away from her, because obviously I didn't want it to impact on her mental health either. So very important to talk to each other, have a conversation on your mental health.
Because you said actually that she works in mental health. What is Michelle's job?
Yeah, she's an advocate. She's an independent mental health advocate. So, and she also runs wellbeing centres in our local town of Bridgend. Bridgend, as probably a lot of people know from a couple of years ago, there was a lot of young suicides in Bridgend. So mental health has been certainly a big point in Bridgend over the years. And So yeah, she loves the job, but unfortunately at the moment she's struggling herself because of the impact of people who are struggling during COVID as well. So it's very important to look after your own mental health if you are going to help other people, because if you can't support those people in need as well. So it's really important to look after yourself as well.
Because it's that thing about putting your own life jacket on first, isn't it, before you can actually help others, and the self-care and so on. And in fact, it's also, we're going to be touching on this because it's quite important as well that people do actually ask for help when they need it, which is really the key message as well, which is what we're talking about with yourself, isn't it? So taking us back to what happened, you had you think, in fact, she got pregnant quite quickly, and you had your son Ethan, I think, within a year. Is that right?
Yeah, it was all planned. You know, we had good jobs, financially we were great, a new house, and I thought we were totally prepared for fatherhood. You know, I was 30 years of age, I was ready, and obviously it wasn't until after 22 hours labour, then my anxiety was getting increasing, and I was starting to get worried. There was a lot of things happening before the theatre. And then all of a sudden these doctors came rushing in and they said, Mr. Williams, your wife needs emergency C-section. We need to get down to the theatre quick. And it was the first time I actually had a panic attack. Never had a panic attack like that ever before in my life, you know. So it was very distressing.
To me, that panic attack, and it was quite horrible, actually. I'm just going to double check something, Mark, because there's some feedback here. I'm not sure why. Have you got another device on?
No.
Another window open?
Let me just see if I can close this one, but
yeah, I just wanted to make sure there's no windows or open elsewhere, because we're getting a little bit of feedback. Yeah, perfect. We'll try that. Yeah, so you were saying that you described it to me, and it sounded awful because you said your heart was pounding, and it's interesting because people hear of panic attacks, but sometimes it's not actually clear what that is or why. So you said you were sort of, your heart was pounding and so on, and you felt like everything was just closing in.
Yeah, chest. And I think what I was worried about, obviously, I didn't want the attention taken away from Michelle either. So in our time in it as well. So I felt a bit, I didn't feel good about myself because, you know, the attention was starting to go on me. The nurse, obviously, the midwife, obviously, give me these coping skills. So yeah, I felt a bit, didn't feel so good about that. But it wasn't obviously until I went down to theatre, and obviously what you witness now, what I witnessed. And I worked, I know I will go on to other things later on, but I worked in secure units. I witnessed horrific things in my life. There's nothing worse than thinking your wife and baby's going to die in that situation, you know.
So actually it had quite an impact on you at the time. And you didn't say anything at the time, did you? You didn't tell anybody how you were feeling or the impact? No.
As we know now, PTSD is an anxiety disorder, either witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. That's what it is, really. But it wasn't until Michelle obviously went on to have severe post-depression. Obviously, my life totally changed overnight, really. Totally changed. And I went from expecting to have this wonderful feeling of love for my child, and I didn't get those feelings. I was just relieved he was alive, you know. And all of a sudden then, like I said, you're giving up work for 6 months. I was self-employed. There was no money coming in. There's a mortgage play. Michelle was in crisis team. It's lack of sleep. It was all overwhelming. It was, you know. And it was just happened so quick, and didn't know nothing about mental health and nothing whatsoever 15 years ago. So it just so overwhelming for me, massively.
And you did say that you obviously were trying to manage all this yourself without putting the burden on her, because you felt you needed to support her, which was as admirable. But I think also at the time, I think you said also it was a culture within your family as well to you don't share your problems, you man up. And it was.
No, you're right. No, you're right. And I got fantastic parents, fantastic family. I'm pretty fortunate in my community. A lot of people know me in my community. But it's always been like my father was a miner, my grandfather. And if we had a problem, it was, come on, let's go to the pub. and have a drink, like, sort of thing. So obviously those negative coping skills developed then. So when I did get anxious, or as I went on to have depression, those are those coping skills. I didn't know nothing about positive coping skills at that time, you know. So and I know community, it is very much I'd say it's a different community to some communities. It's very much, you know, come on, get up, you know, man up, and let's get on with this sort of thing. But I was suppressing all his feelings, and then also that comes out in all different behaviours then as well.
And I think what is also apparent is that in those days as well, there's quite a lot of feedback, actually. Can you actually hear the feedback?
No.
No, okay. All right, well, we'll carry on. I just wanted to make sure that people can actually, please do put a comment in the chat to let us know that you can hear us okay, everybody. Anybody who's listening, please just let me know that you can actually hear us okay, and that there's not going to be any you are understanding what we're saying, please. So in terms of what you were saying, actually, also in those days, I don't really think that father's postnatal depression it wasn't diagnosed. It wasn't as even if it was a thing then, was it? It wasn't.
Well, yeah.
It was recognised.
There's been a lot of research over the years, a lot of research, but obviously it wasn't in the public eye, and certainly mental health wasn't in the public eye like it is today. You know, 2004 in December, you know, leading into 2005, you know, I didn't know what depression was, let alone postnatal depression. So you start these feelings thinking, is my wife unwell because of me? You know what I mean? So, you know, we know that fathers feel guilty, they're not good enough. Fathers worry about social services. Everything that new mums suffer, of course, they worry. You know, it's not a gender thing. You know, it can happen to anyone, really. But I think one of the things I did learn is that bond and attachment is so important. And that 6 months I was home, when my wife was unwell in bed, obviously I had that time, that skin to skin, which actually benefits dads with that, because it actually releases oxytocin as well. So a lot of things come out, some bad, good things as well, you know. But certainly it was, you know, it's still today is a big stigma and lack of education. What is postnatal depression in fathers as well?
And this is Michelle from earlier. Mark, I'm going to ask you a favour, honey. Can you try taking your headphones off? Because it was when we did the test run without the headphones. It was fine when we first. Let's see if it works. So even more echo. What I just wanted to share with you is Michelle's comment. It's so true. People do say, man up, pull yourself together. It's not helpful. Thank you for raising awareness. And I think it is better, actually. There isn't any feedback now. Thank you. We can still hear you.
That's good. That's good. That's the main thing.
Really good. Honestly, that's better. I do think, actually, there is that tendency, isn't there? And it is also a tendency for men to not want to sort of share, you know, the sort of sensitivities, really, that they might be going through, because it is, I do think it is very focused on the woman. And so, you know, I think it's great that you recognise that, isn't it? What I also think was interesting is that you said that it's how this all then manifested itself, because you said that you then became very angry, and because you weren't getting out, you weren't able to meet up and socially with the people that you were doing because you changed your job and everything. And so I think I feel there's almost like a parallel with COVID right now. And the fact that people aren't getting out and socializing and seeing people, and so you've got everything happening, and it's everybody's life has changed.
Yeah, definitely. The structure, everything was changed during that time, you know. And we talk about isolation. I've never been so isolated in that first year of fatherhood. You know, I mean, my personality totally changed. Like I mentioned, I was drinking, I was avoiding situations, I was all those feelings, I was suppressing those feelings, and then that has to come out in some behaviors, unfortunately. And men are known more because, you know, these conversations haven't been taking place over the years, and that's why we got the biggest killer in men 45 is suicide. And that's, you know, so it's, you know, it's very much important just to have a conversation, you know, I mean, like we are starting to do now more, but certainly back then it was. Yeah, it was. And my work is, as everyone will know, is never about taking the attention away from mum at all. This is saying, look, if you don't look after dad as well, it does actually impact the mum's mental health as well, long down the line. So the relationships, unfortunately, are sadly ending when that early prevention could be in place and support all parents as well.
So I think that is also the key message that's come out of today, because like even with Naomi and talking about, you know, her brother and taking his life, and then similarly with Michelle earlier on talking about, you know, she'd had the support she needed at the time with her son. So it's the same sort of thing, really. Often it's about getting that early support, isn't it? But also, I think you were holding it in, weren't you? And I think you said that you were also having suicidal thoughts as well, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely. Never made a plan, never have. But I was certainly, obviously, in the later stage, which I'll talk about later on, that could have been in place. But in our first year, definitely, and like a lot of people don't understand that a lot of parents got a past history, as I mentioned, and mine was obviously ADHD, which I found out years later. But so there's loads of reasons why, you know, and also the lack of sleep as well can have an impact on your mental health. So yeah, I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was going on. You know, everyone think, oh, the most happiest time in your life being a new dad, but it certainly wasn't that, especially the early days for me. It was really tough, you know, very tough.
And you said that when you even went out, when you did get out and about, you actually got into fights, and you were just you even hurt your hand, you punched something. So it was coming out as anger.
Yeah, and anyone knows me, I'm so laid back. I'm normally just chills out normally, and you know, my personality totally changed in our first year. Punched the sofa, bust my hand, and when I did manage to get out my friends, which is rare at that time, they didn't recognize me really. I was starting to fight with bouncers, because then when somebody's hit, you know, it can be another form of self-harm. You know, I was like, guess my mind was just totally running like 100 miles an hour. I mean, it was so overwhelming, loads of things, and then you start feeling like you know, your family better off without you, and all sorts of things, you know. So and get paranoid. So yeah, I was just starting to get in that dark place, you know.
I mean, that's very sad to hear, isn't it? But I'm sure you're not alone, and that's what I think is really brave of you and lovely of you to actually share this story, which I know you've shared elsewhere, but I think it's a different audience as well, and it can sometimes give hope to other people who are going through the same sort of thing, can't it? And the other thing I think is that you shared with me is that you then realized you needed to get help, and you needed to acknowledge it and tell people. What was the pivotal thing that made you decide to do that? Was it you thinking of having suicidal thoughts, or what was it?
No, I suffered in silence for years, really, up and down constantly. Obviously, I started changing my job then, and going into mental health, because I was a youth worker, voluntary youth worker. So I started changing my career at the youth club that helped me as a child. And then obviously the suicides in Bridgend were happening. Lack of education with journalists and media about suicide. And so I went on a mental health first aid course, the 2-day course, suicide assist courses, and I started working in units. And but I still didn't get the help, because I was worried if I went to the GP, then it'd be on my notes, and I would never get a job in mental health. So I carried on.
Oh gosh, isn't that a worry? So even though you wanted to help people, that you didn't say anything. So what did you then do then in order to get the support you needed?
Yeah, so obviously I was going into work in a forensic ward for people with severe personality disorders. So I was starting work there, and but in the meantime, obviously backtrack a couple of months, I was physically fit during that time. Physically fit. I was doing kickboxing. I was physically fit, but mentally it was impacting on my physical health. And it was obviously when my grandfather was passed away with dementia, and lost my mother with cancer. My mother was diagnosed with cancer. She's fine now. Within a short space of time, it was like my timeline of trauma, everything that's happened, which I hadn't dealt with, even from childhood, everything just triggered on like a domino effect. And now I was going in this place where I hadn't been really, you know, the thoughts were getting worse and worse and worse. And then I started avoiding and situation, pretending to go to work, and then go up the mountains and sleep in a car, because I didn't want my wife to find out if I was in bed and couldn't get out. So I'd sleep in the car, And yeah, I just carried on like that. It did then until obviously eventually my body just shut down and I didn't have no choice. I had to get the help.
You had a breakdown, didn't you? You had a physical and sort of mental breakdown with both.
Everything. Yeah. I was in a car one day. My anxiety, obviously, everything had just come to head, and I had to phone Mental Health Matters Wales, which my wife works for now, and I've worked for in the past. And it was just a conversation over the phone. I was put on medication and then counselling, and then entered community mental health services. But certainly prior to that, I wanted to section myself. I didn't feel safe, and I just went to the pub instead. It's just madness when I think of it now. How I just carried on because I used to worry what people thought as well. And the most important is yourself. You got to get. Don't worry about other people. Make sure you get that support. That's what I tell people.
You sharing that though, I think that I bet you it's common. It'd be lovely if anybody wants to share. I bet you that's common. People do worry about what others will say or what others will judge them. I think with obviously you've shared that you're from a culture where your family were telling you man up. Then probably you admitting there was a problem, it would be you're weak or something, and that must be a fear of a lot of people.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, like I said, my mother was a nurse, mental health nurse originally, and then she went into another field because she had her own troubles. So my family had, I'd say it was I thought it was a society that told us to man up, community, So yeah, I didn't tell my parents anything. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone. The only time I told somebody was obviously how I started Fathers Reaching Out. Really, that was the first time I really opened up to somebody, and it was just a conversation like we having today. It was amazing, and I can talk about it later on if you want me to as well. So but yeah, it's just that's what we keep carrying on, and eventually something's going to go. It's so that's why early prevention is so important, and having this conversation like today. As well.
How did you go about? Did you go and tell your wife, or how did you go about coming out with the fact that you were feeling this way?
Yeah, well, when I entered community mental health service, literally I couldn't get out of the bed then, so obviously I had to rest, and I was put on medication and counselling, and which took a bit of time. I went private for the counselling because there was a waiting list, and then I was exposed. Then I had to open up, but I think what really changed was when I was in a gym one day, and so it's about 7-8 weeks in, and I was trying to get back into work, and I spoke to the gentleman in the gym. I said, "Oh, can I bother the weights for there?" And he said, "Yeah, it's fine. I gotta go to NHS Prams." And I said, "What's NHS Prams?" I said, "I'm working in a hospital in Cardiff." And he said, "Oh, my wife's got postnatal depression." And all of a sudden I said, "Oh, my wife had postnatal depression too." No way. And all of a sudden we had a conversation, and unfortunately Brian's don't mind me sharing this, he witnessed his father die through suicide before 20 years ago, and he never dealt with things like that. And then a new baby, and his wife Hilary had severe postnatal depression like Michelle, and it just felt brilliant because I realized somebody else had experienced the sort of feelings and emotions I'd experienced, because I didn't know any other fathers really had been talking about this. And we went on to I set up a support group called Fathers Reaching Out, and that was only to support fathers with their partners with postnatal depression. But after just sharing my story and Brian shared his story, all of a sudden all these men were just opening up. So it's the biggest myth. It is a big myth that men don't talk. You put them in a safe place with somebody with a bit of empathy and understanding, men do talk. They will talk.
And this again resonates so much with what Michelle was saying earlier on. It's like finding that community of people that you can actually share that story with. And I loved it when you told me a little bit of that story earlier, and it really felt really good, because all of a sudden, you were probably both pivotal in each other's recovery.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it also gave me a purpose as well. So I had a new purpose then to set up a support group, and obviously we did an article in a local newspaper, and it just went like wildfire. Did all of a sudden you started doing TV interviews and all sorts of things come from it then. So yeah, so it had a purpose now, and I wanted to help parents. And it was, yeah, the feedback I was getting, it was stuff that even the mums were phoning me up and saying, look, Mark, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me, but my husband is struggling and it's impacting on my mental health. And it just grew and grew and grew, and I'm a mentor. And yeah, it was great. It was just nice when you've helped somebody, even just having a conversation. And some of these men were really unwell, these dads. Some actually had made a plan, and we had to break confidentiality, and obviously we had proper safeguardings in place. And so that was the most serious side of it, where these fathers were making a plan.
Gosh, do you know what? That must be such a breakthrough for an interesting way of thinking about it, that women are the ones phoning you to say, my husband needs support. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I still get midwives, health visits today. They have a conversation with me, and after you hear me talk, they go back, oh, I've never had a conversation with my husband. I know he was struggling during this time. So yeah, it's great. It's just I feel that I've learned so much off the parents as well. And my knowledge is from lived experience, and also learning off the parents, really. I'm still learning today. And it's the thing with mental health, I will never know everything about mental health. I'm still learning all the time.
And in fact, you've done quite a lot of further training. Like you did your CBT, didn't you? You did your mindfulness, and did all of the intervention. Have they all helped you as well?
Yeah, definitely. I've been a coach for a long time. I've coached young children to become champions, all sorts. And in sales, I was a sales coach. And then obviously when I learned about CBT and mindfulness, and gosh, I wish I had those coping skills in school as well, positive coping skills, and which I still use today. So yeah, we need to start thinking of mental health as good mental health and bad mental health, rather than just thinking mental health is just anxiety and depression and trauma. It actually, we all got mental health, and it's about how we check as well.
Just lost you for a moment then. Yeah, got you back. You just went very, very quiet then. So I think I can still hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I think the connection maybe that's what the problem is, but hopefully
it could be the valley thing. It is some pigeons on a mast somewhere up here thinking.
So where are you? We didn't establish where you are at the moment. Where are you at the moment?
Yes, I'm the Bridgend Valleys. Rhondda Valleys is mostly known. We're just over the mountain from the Rhondda Valleys. So yeah, it's beautiful. We've got a lot of mountains, and I don't want to go off on tangent, but since lockdown, a lot of walking, back to nature. So I've actually benefited from COVID, unfortunately, as well. Just getting back in nature. Yes, it's one of the best places in to actually do all this stuff in Wales, and yeah, it's brilliant.
Being as a slight tangent, yes, my daughter's actually she's been down in Cardiff doing medicine, so she actually, in fact, has been at Bridgend as well. So. Yeah, so we've not been to Bridgend specifically, but we've been down to Cardiff, and it's a beautiful area, very, very nice. So just going back to so once you obviously the other interesting thing about all of this is that actually you hadn't been diagnosed with is it adult autism?
No, so I've ADHD. Yeah, so I've had ADHD all my life. And dyslexia, different form of dyslexias, but I've self-managed that all my life, really. And I was never diagnosed with any PTSD or PND. And but obviously, when I was in community mental health services, I did a test, and my mother came along, and my wife was there 2.5 hours assessment with a psychiatrist, and I was actually diagnosed with ADHD, which was a massive shock because I didn't know anything about ADHD.
And you were 40 at the time. So in the sense, now looking back, now you had that diagnosis so late, did it actually help you to understand a few of the things that had gone on previously and why it had been so difficult?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the important thing about a diagnosis. People say it's a label. It's only a label if you don't do nothing with it. It was like an invisible enemy. So like any other disorder, like bipolar, schizophrenia, ASD, it doesn't go away. But you can self-manage it as best you can as well. And once you know how to deal with that invisible enemy, then, I know exactly how I'm feeling. So I had all that stuff before I became a dad, without, like we mentioned, the birth trauma, then witnessing your wife, Michelle, reporting PND, and, financial costs. It was everything, the bond attachment. And that's why it's so important to get an understanding what is postnatal depression in fathers, because there's always been a myth it's hormonal, but as we know, it's not. It's loads of other factors. There's no one reason. You can't say you got postnatal depression because of that. It's impossible. There's loads of factors you've got to take into account.
Do you want to expand a bit more on that?
Yeah. So definitely. So like you said, if it is a hormonal part, it is, testosterone actually lowers during this time as well. And that can cause fatigue and depression sometimes in loads of different ways. But mostly, like you said, the only way I describe it to my friends is if there was no pregnancy or baby, I wouldn't have had that depression or suicidal thoughts in the first year of fatherhood. But it's like 2 years now, the perinatal period is. So that's the only way I can really describe it. There could be loads of factors as well, But like you said, it's because the screening is not there with dads. And they go into other services years later, and they only get diagnosed with anxiety or depression, like myself was in 2010-11. I was never diagnosed with PND or PTSD, but after working with professionals and academics, I would have been.
And so let's just explain what those mnemonics are for people who maybe don't know. So the PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was basically the trigger for you was seeing your wife's birth of Ethan. Yeah.
That was definitely.
The PND is postnatal depression. Yeah.
And they do overlap because the symptoms of the PTSD, obviously, that itself can cause anxiety and depression. But, that's why it's important, because both need totally different treatments as well. Some works. So that's important to talk about the birth experience, as well as, if you are diagnosed with postnatal depression, it could be some sort of symptom from PTSD as well, So, definitely. It's such, that's the thing with mental health. It's so complex. It's loads of things could be, but what I will say is that once you understand it, and, it's changed my life. It is absolutely changed my life. You realize that, a lot of fathers, as we know, the rates are, through the roof, which I can explain later on to you as well. So it's such a stigma as well, massive stigma amongst fathers, because, like you said, it's not about taking the attention away from mum. We say, look, anyone can suffer during this time.
And I think you've now said that the now it's actually being accepted, and in fact they screen NHS England. They actually screen now for dads if the mum's got postnatal depression. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. We've been doing a lot of campaigning, and even Wales have actually acknowledged the fathers, need support in the perinatal period. Australia screening dads now, as well. They've just done recently. But like, it's always been there. It's just a case of, I think, it's been a lack of education, understanding what it is as well. And it is coming on board now as well. So we will see higher rates, because, as we know, as researcher says, it's 1 in 10 anyway. But it was 1 in 10 for years for mums. And when the more screening and the education was out there, we know it can be anything from 1 in 5, 1 in 7 in mums now. So we, it's coming now. It's coming through, and we've got some really exciting stuff.
A few of the statistics then, because you said you've given me some mind-blowing statistics actually, and I'm going to just read, if you don't mind, from my notes. You said that the Cambridge University, that first of all you said the myth that it's hormonal, which it isn't apparently, and that Cambridge University evidence in 2010 is that 1 in 10 dads have been diagnosed with PND, which equates to 75,000 dads every year. That's frightening.
Yeah. Well, when you say the University Cambridge, it was in 2010. They did 43 studies, they call it. So they averaged it out. So some reports were saying up to 25% would have been diagnosed with postnatal depression. But when you average all the research, and it's actually gone up to 73 papers now, it's 1 in 10. So But yeah, I mean, it's up to 50% of dads will get depression looking after their partners with postnatal depression as well. So my argument is always said, okay, well, if it's only dad who is suffering, in many cases it is, as well as mums, it's up to 50% of mums are going to get impacted looking after their loved ones with postnatal depression. So, and I can say, the NCT, the reports, 38% were concerned about their mental health, and 73% of them were concerned about their partner's mental health as well. So these are really high rates as well. And November did a report, 1 in 5 British fathers felt totally isolated during this time. This is only got out last year, and 3/4 said they used the word stress during the first year of fatherhood as well. So, yeah, Mental Health Foundation, another one, 2018, young fathers, 39% were concerned about their mental health, but that they didn't have our support. And unfortunately, 34% are not with their child full time either. So it's really different pressures on all ages, young fathers.
I mean, so the main message really is that at least the great thing now is that it's now widely accepted and as something which exists rather than you fighting it.
Oh yeah, definitely. You only got to look at the research and everything now, and evidence and everything. Policy changes as well. It's probably recognised, and men are getting diagnosed more now, and even by GPs, because obviously GPs are, as we know, general practitioners. But perinatal mental health services, more specialist services, are actually including dads now as well. But we still got a long way to go. But I wouldn't say too long, I should say, but yeah, so we campaigning, and we got loads of things happening, parliamentary group happening. There's loads of things happening now as well.
And you said that you're doing this campaigning, and is it through, you said you set up a CIC now?
Yeah, so I work with a lady doctor, and for the last 10 years, and we said we do training, and we wanted to be like a community interest company, so the profits will go to help parents as well. And obviously written books, and we've done journals, we've done a lot of things together. And
like you said, Dr. Hanley, is that?
Yeah, Dr. Jane Hanley. So Jane wrote the book on perinatal mental health and for professionals, and she's been in the field like 34 years. First as a health visitor, and then when she took me on board, then I started educating myself, and I'm really into this stuff, mental health.
Yeah.
I like to look at the research, and I think that's one good thing about having ADHD. You can really hyper focus on things where you love, and so, and I knew I was right, because it was coming from the parents. They were telling me they were struggling. It was all sorts of reasons. So I knew I was right from the early days. So yeah, it's just gone there, and high risk in, as we mentioned, suicide in new fathers is extreme. Up to 47 times more risk during this time, because what happens is the men, like I mentioned, like mums, they go into other services years later. That's why we want that early prevention and screening in place, really, to so that even if they don't get the help, then they can pinpoint the root of the cause, and rather than just get an umbrella diagnosis like depression or anxiety.
And when you do the sort of diagnosis, what does that actually involve?
Yeah, so the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale is validated. Any mums out there, you probably had like a 10 questionnaire. They use other toolkits. I won't go too much into depth for that, but it is validated. But I would ask dad about his behaviour changes. So, if there's a dad out there now, is he avoiding situation? Is he drinking more since the baby's been born or since the pregnancy? Is he feeling anger? Is he feeling overwhelmed? Is he, overworking, overeating? All these behaviours sometimes, so they could be signs that he is struggling, and giving dads the confidence as well, So, fatherhood has totally changed. When my father's a minor, it's totally changed. There's more single dads, more stay-at-home dads, same gender parents, and we need maternity services need to start changing now with the times as well, to include all parents, because I've been hands-on dad since day one, So, and the pressures are totally different now for people today, far more increased because of social media. You know, that perfection of being a perfect parent, which doesn't really exist. You know, and obviously COVID now. I mean, COVID, you know, we've seen a massive increase.
And I'm glad you've mentioned the perception of being the perfect parent, because do you know what that is? It's something that just exists, isn't it? You know, there is the pressure because of social media to, you know, you don't admit anything's wrong. You want to be hunky-dory and everybody's having a wonderful time. Or if you don't want to bear all, but you know, you only will. It's like even with Zoom now at the moment, people will go on a Zoom call, they will put this face on, but actually as soon as the Zoom call ends, you don't know what's actually happening. And it's only by being at work that people really see what's going on for people and how they're really coping. And I think you know, companies are starting to recognize that, you know, there's got to be other ways of actually checking in on their staff, because of the thing, it is so difficult, because they can't really see them face to face properly unless they are going back to work fully.
No, you're right, and I think that's what's happened to my wife recently as well, because obviously working in mental health, it's been a massive increase of calls, and she haven't had that proper, you know, supervision. We need to have our supervision in place as well when you're taking on people's problems and stuff. So, yeah, it's, you know, it's affecting health professionals as well. You know,
definitely.
You know, the increase as well with demand of needed services as well. So, yeah, you're right. Totally, and employers, you know, need to look out at new dads, you know, because when they go back to work, you know, if dad is mentally well, that's going to improve their business as well, you know. So we shouldn't be just relied on to health professionals like health visitors or midwives. You know, we got to look at new dads going back to work and thinking, hang on, we got to check in with dad there, because maybe it's so much going on as well.
That is such a valid point, actually. And you know, I'm sure it must be, you know, for any dads listening, it must be very heartwarming to think that you're trying to raise the profile of all of this, because you know, it is probably something that's not spoken about enough.
No, and this is why I do these, you know, interviews and stuff for yourself, and because I think, you know, I wish I knew another father who've actually experienced those experiences, like, and then I wouldn't have felt so bad. You know, some of the dads I've spoken to, they just want acknowledgement that they may not have that overwhelming feeling of love for their baby, but they will come. You know, it does come. It doesn't happen instantly. Sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean? And that's enough for them sometimes. Obviously, the more severe end, you know, it can get to the point, like I mentioned early on. You know, unfortunately these dads, and we know dads who actually have gone on to take their lives, unfortunately, as well. You know, so it's so important to check in on all parents, really, and also have that conversation with each other. That's vital, you know what I mean, really vital to keep relationships together as well.
There's a lady, in fact, in Wales, Rhiannon Manning. I may be pronouncing her name wrong. And something, you know, we must connect on LinkedIn, because we'll connect you with her, because that's exactly what happened. And her husband took his life. Which is really sad.
It is, yeah, it is, and like I said, it's. But I agree. Like in World Mental Health Day today, you know, the conversations are changing. They are changing more, and I know certainly in the last 4 years, gosh, I've seen a big increase in awareness and education. But now is where we need to put those support, you know, in place now as well, and spend more money supporting people. And yeah, you're right. It's just.
I also want to acknowledge the amazing work you're also doing, and in fact, I just want to also quote. I'm going to embarrass you here. You were awarded, apart from setting up the Fathers Reaching Out group in 2011, you were also awarded the Inspirational Father of the Year award and Local Hero at the Pride of Britain Awards, which is wonderful. Really, really good for the work you're doing, which is great, raising awareness. I also think it's amazing that I didn't know this was a thing, that you've founded International Fathers Mental Health Day, and it's now recognised as an official day in the calendar.
Yeah, it's in the Time to Change mental health calendar alongside World Mental Health Day today. It was just an idea I had in 2016, and then obviously I founded it, you know, and wanted an international. So I had a doctor in America, and it's just gone from strength to strength, really. And we've got a couple of doctors around the world now, and it's always a day after Father's Day, because not every father is happy on the Monday, you know. And so it's all about, you know, support, research, or everything, you know. It's open to anyone to join in, really. And just that one day, like I said, we should be talking about mental health every day, but it's just that one day we're trying to highlight it even more about the importance of fathers' mental health as well. So it's been great, and that's why me and my wife said, anyone really knows me, it's like, I wanted something good to come out of something bad and give people hope, you know, that if you are struggling, look, you know, there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you can actually use your experiences then to actually help others if you wanted to as well, you know. So that's what it's all about, you know, trying to change, you know, the reframing your mind and turn it into a positive as well.
And
Definitely.
I mean, that's very important, isn't it? Because I mean, that's what cognitive behavioral therapy is about. It is about recognizing that your thoughts affect your emotions, affect your behavior, etc. And there is that vicious cycle, isn't there? But I think it is also about the reframing tools to actually reframe a situation and see it from a different perspective before it gets too late. And luckily, some people get that support, but it is about also seeking the support, isn't it? And looking out for it. Which is important. And I also want to flag the fact that you have actually met the Royals in 2016. You were invited to meet the Royal Family on World Mental Health Day in 2016. I bet that must have been amazing.
Yeah, do you know, I can't believe that's 4 years ago now. So yeah, it was on, it was in London, fell off by the wheel, I can't think of now. We met in there, and out to all the campaigners, there was 3 campaigners allowed to have a conversation, and it was I was chosen to speak to William N. And as you know, he's talked about fatherhood and his own pressures of fatherhood as well, you know. So yeah, it was great. It was a good. I always keep that conversation to myself, like, you know, what he told us. But it was it was just brilliant. And obviously done some work in with the Heads Together campaign as well. So, and do you know, I wouldn't change it, nothing. I wouldn't, honestly, and nothing whatsoever in my life. I just think, you know, that things have happened to me, and if I can, other people can actually benefit from, you know, speaking out, then that's what I'll keep on doing. You know, it's my life work, this is now, and all the experiences, you know, television, radio, you know, travel around the world, you know, doing conferences and doing stuff online and stuff. It's just brilliant now. Really in a good place.
That's fantastic. And it's so nice to see and hear that recovery, you're a classic example of recovery, which is wonderful. It's lovely to see, and how you found your calling, and you've turned a very difficult situation into something so positive to help other people. And that is so lovely.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's always nice to have an award of people and stuff like that. But I think when you know that you've supported somebody from actually going on to take their lives, I think that's what I always look back on, and the situations I've been in, and I know we now, you know, what we've done. We go in Parliament, we just publish a report to myself, and obviously with the help of other people because of my dyslexia, obviously, but able to reference things up. But it's about how you using your strengths as well, you know. So it's been brilliant. I'll be honest with you, and I'll keep doing it. I keep doing it. I can't see me doing anything else now, and I just love it. I love it. I do, you know, and even run my own business now. I never thought I'd run my own business, and you know, get paid to do what I love, you know, as well, which I actually love it. You know what I mean? So
you're obviously thriving from the whole process, and so, you know, if you were to leave any particular tips with anybody about your journey, which has obviously you've been in a very dark place, you know, where you were thinking of taking your own life, and now you're in this place, what would you say would be the tips you would give?
Yeah, definitely just have a, you know, talk to somebody, talk to you. Like everyone knows now, the stigma is getting better. You know, we are understanding more about mental health, but don't worry what other people think. You know, you're more important than what other people think, you know. And also there's loads of resources out there now, like, you know, the NHS helplines is mental health helplines. There's loads of national organisations on there, and also this good friend of mine set up Hub of Hope, which is you put your postcode in, and it tells you what service is actually in your local area as well.
Oh.
So so there's loads of things, and like I said, there's resources, online resources out there now. There's loads of things to get that help. If you feel you can't do it face to face, there's also other resources out there as well, and IAP services. Obviously in England, there's loads of things. So one tip I would say: don't do what I did. Don't suffer in silence, and it'll get you in the end. So you may as well just do it now. As I always say, the quicker the help, the quicker recovery. That's what I always tell people.
Before it gets too advanced or too and
it's a longer journey back, isn't it? It's a longer journey back. So if you're feeling get the help straight away, and don't worry what other people think.
Also, I think it's also about you, even if you want to seek help and you don't want to seek it from the person who you know, because you're trying to protect them, you think it's going to be, there are other people who can help you anonymously.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a big concern when it comes to fathers, because, like you said, they're more concerned about their partners as well, and they just carry on and trying to support the whole family. When so yeah, if you feel you can't have that conversation with your partner, there is other people out there. You even got helplines now. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of good helplines out there. We know about Samaritans and Calm, and but there's other online services like Just to Talk, have a chat, and that's what they're there for, that as well. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just have a conversation, and don't suffer in silence. Honestly, it's and I think I'm pretty positive in the next couple of years we are going to see this even bigger and bigger, more things, positive things that can come out of all this stuff. I'm just concerned about COVID at the moment as well, because how it's affected some people. Like I said, I benefited from COVID, unfortunately. I know people don't want to hear that, not financially, but as I've gone back to nature, I'm not rushing around everywhere. I'm not jumping in my car 4 o'clock in the morning, go to London. I'm actually working from home. I got a structure in place now, and I've lost weight. I'm back in the gym. I'm doing things I really enjoy as well. So I'm taking that time out from my work to give me that space to actually look after my own mental well-being as well. So yeah, I've coped a lot better than some people during COVID.
Because a lot of people are using, in fact, interestingly, they're using the time that they would have been commuting to work more. So it's about thinking about, well, do you use that commute time for an hour or whatever to actually do more exercise or get out in nature or read a book or etc., or do some meditation? And there are other options, aren't there?
Yeah, definitely. You're right. And I'm up in the attic now. I got a skylight, and I'm just, the mountains is over there. And it's things I haven't really has done since March. The simple things. I think that's what I've gone back. I've gone back to doing the simple things in life. A lot of people are finding gardening is the next big thing. So it's just finding out what works for you, and that's the thing with mental health. It's about finding out what works for you. We've got to be more person-centered and find out, because what works for me might not work for you. So it's just finding out, and yeah, definitely. And you will get there. You will absolutely get there if you keep. And like you said, if there's anyone is struggling, it ain't easy. I'm not going to take that away from it, because it was a hard recovery, and that's the important thing. Is if you keep working at it, you will get better at it.
Well, do you know what, Mark? It's been absolutely amazing talking to you. And I think what would be useful, because I think some of these things, there may not be people able to listen to this now, but we are going to be sharing it far and wide, and also going to be shared on LinkedIn and other channels. If there's anybody who's got any subsequent questions or comments that they'd like to ask, we will come back to this and we will answer them, definitely. And I also think it might be useful to put some links in. We'll create a document which we'll share and put in the chat, so that people can actually follow up and they can get any support. So maybe we'll put something together, which we can share.
Definitely, that'd be great. No, I've enjoyed it. Like I said, that's all we've done today, is have a conversation. It's great, and I can't believe it's just gone so quick. It's just
I
gone.
know.
Didn't realise it's nearly an hour. So yeah, no, it's flown.
But I think it's very helpful, and I think the key messages I've been trying to get through today to everybody, whether it be through all the 3 conversations we've done, is to really, it's important that help is out there. It is about seeking support. It's about also, I want to just mention my key theme I always talk about, which is the kindness to yourself, kindness to others, but also looking out for other people. And it may be the person that you spotting something's going wrong. Is it that behavior that's changed? Is there something going on for them? Check in with them, check they're okay. It's not about necessarily asking loads of questions. It's just being with them, just to make sure that they've got that support net and somebody there that can support them, isn't it? It's not necessarily asking lots of questions, because that can be quite.
Oh, it can be overwhelming, can it? You know.
Yeah, it's about just being there, and I think we established that even because when talking with Naomi, it's sometimes just creating that quite soft, listening space, which is really, really good. So thank you very much, Mark. If there's anybody, unless there's anybody else who's got any questions, please do leave them in the chat and we will come back to them. But thank you very much. And I hope you've all enjoyed the conversations today. But I do think it's going to be really important for us to carry on these conversations. I think we might just have a follow-up about this, Mark, in a few months. And I think it's just to let everybody know again, I'm going to be setting up this conversational group, which will be called Time to Talk, so that people can carry this dialogue on. And we'll get Mark in it as well, and Michelle, and so we can just basically carry on the conversations. People can share their ideas, their thoughts, their struggles. They can do it anonymously or not. It's entirely up to them. But thank you, everybody. And I hope you've enjoyed the day. And I will follow up on this all. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care, guys. Thank you.